Hi guys, how you doing? It's been a while since I've been doing this, so I've decided to come back. What I want to talk today about is the human soul and AI. We've seen this massive expansion of ChatGPT, Midjourney, and all of these new artificial intelligence tools which are coming out, and people have been quite shocked and taken aback by the power that these things have. Now, I've also been looking at massive amounts of new information coming out about what we're going to do in the future with the post-human and the transhuman. There's much more information being talked about at the moment in about transhumanism, but still nothing about post-humanism. And there's a lot of things that are being spoken about concerning uploading the mind to the internet. And I think that they're not quite telling the truth about what's going on, because they never introduced the concept of the soul. A lot of scientists don't believe in God. And some of the scientists that do believe in God have very different views of the monotheistic traditions which are out there. The soul comes from a different dimension. If you look at a religious point of view, the soul comes from a different dimension. And that dimension can't be touched by technology. And there seems to be some sort of battle going on between technology and the soul. So the soul would come under metaphysics, and that would come under magic, if you like, because magic and metaphysics is a science which is in a different dimension. And then you've got mineral technology, which is the artificial intelligence which is happening in this reality. And so you've got two different realities which seem as if they're sort of fighting in order to have control or dominance over the human. When I say control or dominance over the human, what I suppose I'm saying is that AI seems to have, during the Enlightenment period, there was a split between science and magic. You had the alchemists. The alchemists were the first people to come, and they believed in the occult traditions, and they managed to mix it with science. And the people that are scientists at the moment come from this occult, this alchemistic tradition. The alchemists were one of the people to advance science more than anyone else. And then what happened is that you had a split, and they refused to accept religion. So religion was taken out because religion was holding the science back. But there were also elements within the ideology of science which included mysticism within it. And so today what we have is a complete split between science and magic. And so magic or mysticism or occult or whatever, it's sort of suppressed out of the way. And so you've got a lot of scientists that don't look at this aspect of reality, and they deny it or they say it doesn't exist. And so when you talk about things like the soul, it's not included into the narrative of the conversation with AI. And what they're saying is that consciousness exists in the brain, but to a metaphysician, consciousness exists outside of the body. The brain acts as a sort of a filter. It stops information coming. It doesn't create the information. It stops the information coming. So if you go and take something like plant medicine actually takes you out of the confines of the physical body so that you can use other tools in metaphysical bodies in order to understand things about the reality in the world around you, which science denies and it refuses to look into, because science, if you like, is a cult. And if you introduce elements or ideologies into the conversation with science that has its very rigid boundaries, it doesn't involve anything like that into the conversation. However, it is my opinion that the people that are very, very advanced in science do include that in, but we don't know a lot about them. And so when they're talking about uploading the mind onto the internet, they're talking about it as if the soul or everything exists here, and that if you can somehow copy paste this and put it onto a computer instead of having it in a brain, somehow consciousness is moved. And I don't believe that exists. I don't believe that's possible, because I don't believe that consciousness comes from the brain. I think it comes from something outside the brain, which is backed up by a lot of other philosophies as well. And so what I think is going on is that they want to start developing more and more technology in order to try and get this upload of the human memories and the human brain onto a computer. But I don't think it's got anything to do with consciousness. They're saying it's about consciousness, And they're giving you this ideology that, you know, when people pass away, they'll still have memories of that person, or they don't want to lose information in order to give it to successive generations. But really, I don't think it's about that at all. I think really what they want to do is they want to identify where the soul comes from. And I think that they want to go and try and find technologies in order to trap the soul. And I think that trapping the soul is going to be done through the metaverse. So there's two ways that you could trap a soul. You could either try and extract it out of the body and put it into the machine, or you keep it within sort of the body, however that's working, and then you take this body into the metaverse. Once you take this body into the metaverse, time changes, because time is something that you can, it's subjective. So you can play with it. So in our bodies at the moment, if we have an exhilarating experience, time changes. If we have a boring experience, time changes. But in the metaverse, times can change as well. And up there, time changes as well. If you look at the Indian text, the Maharati, the Prunas, the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavajan, Prunas, and the other texts, it talks a lot about time, as the gods up there have very different times from the people here. So one day up there is 300 years here, or something like that. And so what I think is going on, they don't want us to know that there's an experiment going on with trying to isolate or trap the human soul. Technology, what does technology want from us? What is technology? It's something which has never been explained. What is technology? You could say technology is the practical expression of science. You could say something like that, but we don't know what is behind technology. What is behind nature? Maybe God is behind nature. Maybe spirits and entities are behind nature, if you look at it from a shamanic point of view. But if you look at technology, then what is behind technology? If you look at technology from a shamanistic point of view, you'd have to say, well, perhaps there are spirits and souls, you know, in the other dimensions, in technological dimensions. Because you'd say, well, where does technology come from? Does it come from a different realm? Does it come from a different dimension? Does it come from a mental realm? Well, in that realm, are there other entities? And when you talk about consciousness of technology, lots of people say that technology can't have consciousness because it's made from, for instance, metals, or it's created by us, or they can't understand how there could be another type of consciousness that's outside the remit of the human consciousness, or even the remit of a biological consciousness. So, for instance, some people say animals don't have consciousness. Some people say they do. So the people that say that animals have consciousness have a larger ability to expand their thinking to say that consciousness can exist outside of the human realm. So they put it towards humans and animals. And then you say to those people, well, do plants have consciousness? And they'd say no. So that's a step too far. But other people will say yeah. So the shaman will say yes, okay? And then you say to that person, okay, so consciousness is human, animal, and plant. Yes. But how about a toaster? How about a kettle? How about a phone? And they'd say no. So that's too far for them. And then you'll come to another person that says, yes, that can exist. So it depends how far the imagination can go. It's very easy for us to imagine consciousness within the confines of something which is biological. Plants, bananas have 40% the same DNA as we do. But technology, a toaster doesn't have any DNA as what we do. So it's very difficult for us to think that it's possible for God to have created some sort of consciousness that could exist in some sort of pre-made or manufactured thing. But then you've also got to think, if you think of evolution, maybe not it existed. Humans once came from amoeba. And you might say to someone, does an amoeba have a consciousness? And they might say no. But at some point the amoeba turned into a human, and at some point it developed a consciousness. Therefore, if a toaster doesn't have a consciousness, is there a possibility that at some point that toaster could evolutionize from its amoeba type presence into a consciousness like a human, so artificial intelligence or AGI, and then it could take on a consciousness? And perhaps the answer is yes. So we're still sort of playing with sort of the ideas of consciousness. Can something have consciousness? If it's true that only consciousness can come in biological forms like us, and it can't come in the form of something which is technological, is it possible to put a biological soul into something which is technological? Because the human body is a biological technology. So if you had metal technology, if you were to start taking the biology out of a human a cyborg, for instance, how much biological matter could you take out before it ceased to be a biological entity? So if you started to take out the brain and you started to put in metallic bits into the brain, and you changed the whole brain into something that was metal, but it still managed to retain the consciousness, it's possible that you could put a soul into a mechanical body. And that is where I think they want to go. They want to start playing with the soul. And once you start isolating the soul and you can start moving the soul from one thing to another, maybe you could send it across space, or maybe you could do something like that, but you can also trap it. And I think that one of the issues which is coming up with a lot of people is this idea that the beast system might be AI. I think that technology is neither good nor bad. I think it very much depends on what we create with the algorithms, which comes from our consciousness. And so depending on how clean you are, if you look at shamanism, it's very important to be clean. It's very important to wash your body, because those thoughts that you have when you're a shaman, they can be amplified. And when you've got amplification of thoughts, then you can have problems because you think of something bad, so it's amplified. And I think also the same thing with artificial intelligence. I think it's an amplification. So if you're a source coder and you write code, what subtle illnesses do you have which can be transferred into the code that's amplified by AI intelligence, AI consciousness? So going back to my original point, when the scientists talk about artificial intelligence, they never bring the soul into the conversation, ever. And I think that you need to start bringing the soul into the conversation. Because if you think that the soul's in the head, then you think you can transfer it onto a data system. But if the soul doesn't exist there, it exists somewhere else, then what is it that they're trying to do? Because somebody somewhere must know that it's not possible. What I think they want to do is they want to get the soul into a mainframe, and then from there you can make someone live for 1,000,000 years. And I think that's a very dangerous thing. Very, very dangerous, because then you can't die. And then you've got a big problem. Thank you very much.